Hello and thanks for watching my channel. Here are the most sophisticated revenge and deceit stories. Post-coital sleep is blissful. This allowed me to bind my wife to our custom-made ash wood headboard. Her consciousness returned slowly. She slowly opened her eyes and cried. Her companion Bob Simmons woke up with his wrist shackled in response to her cry. Bob fell from bed with a more macho yell. He twisted his arm and cut his wrist. He struggled to get back on the bed and couldn't speak. Your mistress's spouse, possibly at the foot of the bed with a large caliber handgun, will likely carry out the plan upon your awakening. Your night's sleep? Submitted request. Jerry. My wife cried, it's not as it seems. I said, let's observe its appearance. Why are you laying in our bed with a stranger trying to convince me you're a good wife? Bob breathlessly said, don't be silly. You're not imprisoned for your wife's infidelity. The .35 Magnum in my hand caught his notice. I was shaking with wrath and despair, so that made sense. The man you left me for approaches. If you were my wife, I would have to protect your honor, although it seems unimportant in the near future. I find it intriguing that he still admires you. Barb ignored our suggestions. Jerry, put the revolver away and talk about this. She urged officials not to imprison the person. Our relationship opened like a rose, right? Both of you disrespect him. I expected you to show him respect. You split us over him. Regretful, I replied. Jerry, we'll stick together. I made a big mistake. But we can recover. She cried, I will fix it. How will you do this? Will you abandon prior sexual activity with him? Because that's my only future link to you. You were dear to me. My life would be awful if it happened. No desire to return, but what if I must live with an unfaithful woman? Submitted request. I kept the revolver at my temple. Pulling the detonator may be the easiest method. Let me ease your pain and free you. She yelled. No, Jerry, he said. Come on, execute it. I carefully lowered the revolver. I thought about it. 6 shots were fired when the revolver drum and piston were opened. Their body hit the ground. I took one from below. The asshole growled in annoyance as the headboard it was attached to was intact. Unhappy failure. After I removed the last cartridge, he relaxed. Barb looked scared. A 125-gram 35 Magnum round. Projectiles from this pistol go 1,500 feet per second. The damage area is roughly tripled and flattened when struck with force. You will die from trauma, regardless of whether you survive the impact. I commented to get their attention. Cartridge went to drum. Barb, you know I liked gambling before our meeting. It nearly broke us in our early partnership. I stopped for you. I benefited from stopping. I regret saying I quit because of my love for you. Tilting the revolver back spun the drum. I rotated my wrist to reinstall the cylinder in the moving revolver. I shall let fate decide the outcome, as my options are unclear. I called it fate's finger. My gun slowly moved toward her partner. Bob, the honoree is first. Bob, should I record for your wife or daughters? Submitted request. If Bob eats that missile, 726 Maple Lane will be abandoned. My investigator's delivery will upset Allison, your wife, and your twin kids Zoe and Chloe. While I considered providing fewer explicit photographs, I believe your daughters should be aware of your late-night office activities. I included photos of your other 2 whores to complete the image. I had no idea that pointing the revolver at him might make him paler. The mallet was removed. He shut his eyes. Pulling the trigger. Click. A hammer hit the empty cartridge. I feared he would pass out. His senses returned. Wetting himself made the sheet. Browned him yellow. You won this round. You may encounter your lovely girls again. Calmly I replied. My gun was pointed at my wife. Barb, how about you? Have you planned your death? I worshipped last Sunday. You probably admitted guilt. Will you go to paradise or hell if you die today without confessing? Unless transformed. Was adultery still immoral in your religion? Questioned her. She closed her eyes and whispered, excuse me, what did you say? Questioned her. Yes, Jerry, adultery is wrong. This is a sin against God and marriage. Never recognize my acts. Gunfire would make me irredeemable, she said. Let us determine whether your God desires your life. I pressed the trigger. Squeezing activated the trigger. A hammer hit the empty cartridge. She cried as I pointed the gun at my temple again. Barb learned. Before you, I was depressed. I felt good only throughout the winning sequence. The exhilaration was always placed over financial gain. Your kindness for my hands in the emergency department that evening is remembered. Gino's goons affected me. I pledged not to play if I had a kind wife like you. Did I tell you your hands were holding my consciousness, keeping me from moving? I stopped gambling after paying Gino that night. I know life without you is horrible. You underpin my life. If that projectile hits me, my misery will end. You cannot injure me further. I said, I almost want that she cried as I fired the handgun again. Click. A hammer hit the empty cartridge. my spouse yelled, angry beyond words. Bob cursed. My lover was my target for the revolver. Bob, given that this may be your last moment on earth, could you explain your interest in married women? I don't understand. Your daughters and wife are lovely. To what purpose? Submitted request. Dear son, please don't kill me. Shrugging, I thumb-pulled the trigger. He burst into tears suddenly. Finding and addressing triggers is crucial. Your spouse was unhappy. Every marriage has problems, regardless of quality. She lusted after me, so I highlighted her sexiness and helpfulness. The last installment. He said I win when I fuck another man's wife in her husband's bed. He appeared to be in serious trouble. Laying on the dirty bedding, he looked sad. I avoided taking a photograph to avoid gathering incriminating evidence. He grumbled as he crushed the bed headboard again. I focused on his eyes. Trigger activated. A hammer hit the empty cartridge. Asshole fainted. My gun was pointed at my wife. Either you or I. I am dismayed by the fact that my companion has departed. Barb, you are treasured by me. I almost hoped that it was not you. Things would be cleaned up if I returned home and found you two in bed, and then murdered myself. You would survive. I would not be concerned with murder. I informed her with regret that all of that anguish would be gone, and you would be free to molest anyone. She endeavored to unwind. We were all hanging to a single thread. Jerry, please quit and desist. Your argument has been effectively articulated. Bob collapsed from fear while sitting in his urination. You emerged victorious. We can convince Bob to refrain from charging by placing the rifle down. None of your actions were irreversible. I want to live with you. If you hand over the pistol, I'll execute your divorce decree. If you leave, I'll confess my sins daily. She asked Jer to cease. Barb, it is possible that I am no longer Jerry. When I uncovered your deeds, I was angry. I discovered out that you did it in my bed. I experienced the demise of an internal component. It looks that I am the finger of fate. Would you like us to verify your time? My forefinger retracted the hammer. Trigger activated. A hammer hit the empty cartridge. Barb roared when I pointed the revolver at my head. Destiny appears to have decided. Barb, I love you. Sorry about that. Best wishes for your success. Declaring, I slowly fired. She said, Jerry, please do not damage the headboard. I will leave or stay, and you can humiliate me. Avoid this action. Shouting, God, I need your help. This is better, Barb. Bemoaned my love for you. Closed my eyes. Pulling the trigger. Click. A hammer hit the empty cartridge. It would be prudent to provide an explanation. As a participant, it is feasible to notice this. I exhibit great digit dexterity. My left hand was damaged by Gino, whereas my right hand was unscathed. Dexterity is improved by the use of card tricks, chip shuffling, and coin tosses. Therefore, it is straightforward to take a cartridge from a revolver's drum while the audience is studying the muzzle. I was able to remove the cartridge and place it in my palm by tilting the revolver backwards to turn the cylinder, which gave me with sufficient cover. After that, everything was fair game. To what purpose? I hoped for these individuals to have a sense of anxiety and misery, but I was not fully prepared for their ordeal. Resuming our narrative. My wife's expression made me laugh uncontrollably. This person is who? Did you think you two could imprison me? Unable to catch my breath, I choked. I laughed as I bent down and grabbed all 6 ammo cartridges from the floor. I loaded the weapon correctly this time. Risk-taking was pointless. My wife got the handcuff key. She cried and gasped. Jerk. Bob was waking up. Barb kept crying and didn't get the key. Bob was looking at me while deciding what to do with the key. Scumbag, get the key, get your clothes, and leave. Bob, take that as a command. If the authorities call, I will execute you and your family in the most torturous way, but you can live today. Stay silent to protect yourself, your spouse, and your kids.